What's up, gamers? This is NGG here with another review video. This time it is for Fairy Fencer F Advanced Dark Force, if I correctly said that. It's a long but title for a long game, actually. So let's get into what this game is about and our ratings and gameplay. The first thing I want to tell you about Fairy Fencer is it is a JRPG. It is in an art style that I really like, but there were things happening on this game where I was like, that's a little questionable. So some of the characters are very quirky, and that's one of those things where I'm like, some of these characters are a little bit weird and a little bit off. So let's get into story. So you're in this world where the goddess and the vile god fought, and now they're both enshrined in like these swords, and people are now living their lives after this war, and there are these furies all around. So what furies are like these weapons that were used to take down the vile god and the goddess. And so you collect these furies, and if it's like the sword in the stone, kind of like if you are able to get the fury and pick it up yourself and grab one, then you become a fencer. So you start off with this guy named Fang, who all he wants to do is eat. He's just super hungry, and he can't find anything to eat. He's broke, and he wants to eat meat. I guess meat is a luxury item at that time, and all he wants to do is eat meat. So he runs into this guy at this marketplace who was like, hey, there's a legend in this area, because there's a sword in like a stone kind of bull crap that's stuck somewhere where nobody can grab. He was like, there's a legend going on saying that if you pull the sword out, the fairy will grant you whatever wish you want, if you can manage to pull it out. Nobody's managed to pull it out. Give it a chance if you want. So he does. He tries to pull it out, and he is successful. And then when the fairy comes out, she's like, hey, now that you pulled us out, it's time to revive the goddess. We have to find 100 weapons and to pull out to revive the goddess. And he's like, nah, I just want to wish for me. And she's like, you can get whatever you wish you want after you collect the 100 swords. And he's like, no, I didn't sign up for all this work. I don't want to do it. And so the whole time he's like really not wanting to be a fencer, because once they're able to grab a fairy, and like once they grab the fury, which is the weapon, and a fairy comes out, so now that's his fairy for life. She's attached to him or the weapon. And so he doesn't really want any of that work. He's like, that's too much work. All I want is meat. You're a liar, fairy. Why are they lying about the wishes? And you know, she's trying to convince him like he can get all he wants. And he's like, I don't want to do all that work, right? So there's that. And so there's a bunch of people that are running around the world collecting furies. So they're trying to, for whatever reason, everybody has their own motivation on why they're collecting the furies. But so there are a bunch of fencers around trying to catch these fairies, or these furies. So the furies are the weapons themselves, and then once the weapon is captured and the fairy pops out, it's super weird. It was super confusing for me for a while. It's like the sword in the stone with a person being on the side, except for you don't have a side character. The fairy is like the magic for the weapon, and so and they bond with other fairies to grant you more powers, stuff like that. It's so weird, the game. It was so hard and convoluted for me to understand that there's that. So after you're eventually talked into like collecting the furies and trying to revive the goddess, you're now going around trying to collect these weapons. Things happen. You find out about this evil organization that are trying to revive the vile god. and you don't want them to revive the Vile God, so you are on a quest to collect all the Furies so you can revive the goddess. Alright, so now let's get into gameplay. So gameplay, like I said, this is a turn-based RPG. This has so many mechanics. It took me a while to figure them out. For a while, I was just doing the regular fighting turn-based combat. I hadn't learned about the magic too well, or even the weapon boost. Like, all of that took me some time, and had I not learned about the weapon boost, I would have been in some serious trouble later on in the game, which was causing me issues for a while that I felt under-leveled even though I was at the correct level. It's because I didn't have my weapon boost skills. So like, you can gain like these, like every time you kill somebody, you get a couple of weapon boost points, and eventually each character gets enough where you can gain stats, and those stats carry on. The game itself is pretty long if you are trying to complete this game. I did one complete run, but I think this game expects you to do multiple runs, which I wasn't invested in. I like the game for what it was. I was happy with the ending I got. But I wasn't interested in doing multiple runs of the same game, which I think the game wants you to do. So there are skills in this that require that if you gain enough of those weapon boost powers, you can gain skills, and some of the skills are like, if this person is not in my party, they still gain XP. So that, like, if you're gonna do multiple runs, I would definitely highly suggest unlocking that skill very early, so that when these people aren't in your party for any reason, like they're out for some reason, because not everybody stays in your party consistently all the same time, that they're gaining whatever stats or XP while they're not in your party. That took me a while, like, because I was working on, some of them were working on defense, some of them were working on their fury status. Like, there's so many stats you can build up with this weapon stat that was crazy, the amount of things that were put in this game that I had to learn. And they give you like this tutorial in the beginning, and like, I'm gonna be honest, like, I'm not a learner by reading. I want to do, like, if they would have broken it down slowly, like every couple of things, all right, I've learned this, now let me learn this part of being this kind of, it took so long for me to figure everything out, and they had taught me everything in the beginning. Because I didn't know what any of these systems was, it took me forever. But I definitely, once I was able to learn how the combat system worked, I definitely appreciated the combat style. For me, like, gameplay is king. As long as the game is good in gameplay, I can usually tolerate a mediocre story. But this one, I mean, the story was okay for this one. It wasn't great, it wasn't bad, it was an okay story. But the gameplay, once I got like all the, like, figuring out all the mechanics in the game was super fun, even though it was pretty repetitive in the fact that this game does something a little like akin to Groundhog's Day. Like, there's a situation that happens and then you go back to the beginning of the game with the same stats that you had, but like, you're repeating the same dungeons and the same areas again. And even if you've unlocked the map, it pretends like you've never been there again, and then you have to unlock the map again. That I wasn't happy with, because it felt like the world was small, like we're repeating the same thing over and over and over again. And now I have done this with other RPGs and not minded so much, but this one, where the map it like disappears after you've already done it in one time, like one timeline, and to go back and reopen it in another timeline was a little like, all right, I've already opened this, why am I doing this again, kind of situation for me. So I didn't like that in the gameplay. I would have liked that it would have been different places, but I mean, it makes sense. I mean, they made it make sense in the story, like that you are trying to tell people like, hey, I've done this before, I've been here before, this is what's gonna happen at this location. And even though this timeline is this timeline is slightly different from the other one, so it's not exactly Groundhog's Day. Like, this timeline is definitely different. Every Fury you collected in the other one you get to keep, so there are different Furies in this different timeline. So that's the kind of game this is. If that bothers you, I would not suggest picking this up because that is a big thing in this game. You are also able to unlock the Furies. So the Furies that I was telling you about earlier are like weapons that are stuck in the Vile God and the Vile Goddess, and you're supposed to be pulling these weapons out. You can pick whether you want to pull them out of the Vile God, out of the Goddess, or like split in between, whichever one you want. I honestly didn't end up getting into this mechanic of the game because I felt like I was worried that it was like one of those like the Vile God isn't who you think it is. It isn't the one that looks bad. It's the one that looks like the goddess. I wasn't sure if they were trying to pull the old switcheroo, so I never got into like pulling the Furies, the weapons out. But when you pull them out, they like change the stats in the world. You can like stab the world for some reason with these Furies, and you get stat boost and stat debuffs as well. So every sword has a stat boost and a stat debuff. So I didn't get into pulling those out because a lot of those swords I was like, I don't want to mess with these stat boosts and these debuffs and try to figure out which one I could put here to make what I want. So I went with the basic one, the one you pull out in the beginning, which was like double XP and then something else lowered. But that's the only one I use for the whole thing because you're supposed to use weapons to reveal different locations, and you can leave them in, or you can do what I did, which is pull the weapon out and just put them in the next location to reveal the cave or dungeon that's gonna be unlocked. And that's how I did it. So I never got into pulling any of these swords out to figure out what that does. Actually, I probably should do. I have enough Furies to pull out at least and revive one of them, and I just never thought to do it in my gameplay. I just never got into that part of the game, which is weird because that's the whole part of the game, right? The game does end, so it does show an ending without you pulling that out, and they explain that everything went back to being like calm and relaxing, and the goddess and Vile God went dormant again. But I'm guessing like that's the main ending, just pulling out all the swords from either the Vile God or the Vile Goddess. I did not do that because at my second run already, I was like, all right, I've gotten the game, I've gotten the gist, and I don't think I need to do that. So now let's give this game a rating from 1 to 5. Now, like I said, the story was a little convoluted for me. I didn't like the Groundhog's Day type thing or different timeline thing or having to repeat the game more than once. So I will give this game a 3 because I did like the gameplay. The gameplay was super fun while I was playing it. It had a lot of cutscenes in it where you see these characters talking to each other. So you get to learn all these characters, and I did appreciate that. So that's what I thought about Fairy Fencer. If you like JRPGs, this is definitely a more mature, with some mature thoughts. So that's my thoughts for Fairy Fencer F Advent Dark Force. If you enjoyed this RPG or thinking about tackling this RPG, let me know in the comments below. The next game is coming out and it is going to be a strategy RPG. I'm not like, there are certain strategy games I will play. I'm not sure about the new one, but I definitely like this one enough to kind of say it's an okay RPG. It's not bad, it's not great, but it's not bad either. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. Happy gaming, guys. Bye.